So, a bit of a seesaw of a game tonight, one way and then the other. And how, how difficult was it for your team to overcome, all those penalties they took in the first period?
Definitely hard. You put yourself in that situation where you're wearing down a select group of players. You're not giving ice time to another select group of players that need to touch the puck and get involved that way. So it's something where you're really shooting yourself in the foot. So it's tough to swallow in that respect. Our first period as a whole, and second, it was a tough battle tonight for the guys to get their game on track.
Right. And, a guy who I'm interested in hearing you talk about a bit is Shortridge, who got into the game today, obviously after Sparks came out. Been with you, I think, all year, and finally gets in. And
Mm-hmm.
what's his work ethic been like to get to this point?
Good. He hasn't been with us all year, but he's been here for. If I don't have the brain capacity after that one to go back through and think of exactly when he got here. It's been about a month and a half, and he's been working really hard the whole time. Sometimes gets the tough end of the situation. When we had a number of goalies here, guys like Shortridge would maybe come on later, maybe be the third guy or the fourth guy at practice, and he did it with a good attitude the whole time. And so we're excited to get him into the net and reward him for the work that he's put in. So it was great to see him get some action, and I thought he was solid in it.
And last one for me to start here. Speaking of guys getting rewarded, obviously, great to see Zabby get that great shot.
Yeah.
And my question about Zabgorodny is, playing, at the beginning of the season, sort of in a role, maybe lower down in the lineup. Is that a case of trying to get him to build those good habits at this pro level before maybe pushing him further up the lineup?
Yep. Yep. He's, he did have some pretty good minutes early in the season in terms of situational with line mates and a little higher in the lineup, but he found himself down quite early because that's typically how it works. You need to develop the awareness of what it takes to be a pro on a shift by shift basis and make sure that you're covering the responsibilities that you need to cover. You need to be good away from the puck. You need to be hard around the puck. You need to manage the puck, and he's growing in those areas. But he's certainly taken some great strides, and it's how it goes. It's a similar way it went with a lot of guys on our team that are in their second and third years. That you got to pay your dues to some respect, and then now it's great to see him get on the board there and see him start to blossom.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
We'll go over to Paige.
Cail, I've noticed this year when you guys go into the third period and you're down in kind of the last half there, you're able to flip a switch and beyond kind of the remaining time on the scoreboard. What kind of is the root of that?
Well, unfortunately, Paige, you put yourself in that position where you get your back against the wall, and sometimes I think as a young team, when you're put into that underdog position and being down in the third period, I think maybe it takes a little pressure off and you lean forward a little bit, as opposed to being in earlier periods when it's tight and a mistake seems like it could cost so much. So there's an element to that. There's an element of when you're down, you're playing a little more free and pressing a little more. So the bottom line is we got to find a way to just start better. Lately, we're just not starting well enough, and as you say, we look great in the third period, but it's too little too late at that time.
Right. And then I'm going to bring up video review again because that kind of seemed to be an issue that came up tonight. What were you guys seeing on that? Not obviously it wasn't a goal at that point, but that opportunity from Colton Beck. Was there some conversation on the bench or anything with that? Because on the sport, on the replay there is looking like it might be a questionable one.
Yeah, it looked like his glove might have caught it inside the net. It's a bit of a moot point, though. So you try to, like if the refs aren't having a conversation about it, you're not getting anywhere, because the only chance you have of having something like that overturned is on the initial call right away. We can't go to the replay, as you say. So it's unfortunate, but that's just, some of the things we're going to have to live with. And that wasn't the game for us. The loss was due to more than that. So, it's part of it in terms of we need to be better all around. So I'm trying to say we're not going to pin it on something like that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Anything more for Cail? Go ahead, Mike.
Cail, another guy who I want to ask you about is Glenn Godden, obviously, because he gets on the scoreboard tonight. Been sort of fighting for goals this season and maybe points compared to his pace last year, and seems to be really getting engaged in games in terms of sort of the passion. You see him obviously taking those. I think he took a misconduct penalty in one of the last two games just for getting at it after the whistle, and the production maybe isn't coming to the extent that maybe people expected. But do you think Glenn is still making an impact that is sizable on this team?
Yes, I do. I think that he's competing and he's playing with edge. Sometimes it goes a little too far, and sometimes that's frustration. It's a 4-1 game. He's upset about a call, took it too far. Needs to be able to sort of manage that. After he settled down and got back to his game and had an opportunity to get back into the game, came up big for us on the power play and scored a goal. So that's a good response in the end. But to answer your question, yes, I think that he's managing other aspects of his game along with the production that are very important, as we've talked about. If he's in a situation where he's going to play on the Flames, it's going to probably be in a fourth line role, and he's got to make sure that he's really dialed in battles. He's dialed in his compete. He's dialed in his intensity and his responsibilities off of face-offs and things like that. So I think that he's made some strides there, and he logs a ton of minutes, and he does affect our game really positively.
Yeah, and just touching on the part about being vocal and being really passionately engaged in games, is that something that you've noticed, like other guys on the team picking up slack, in the absences of guys like Marty Pospisil or Alex Gallant before he came back?
Yeah, I got to give Gallant a lot of credit for having, being able to stir things up a little bit. And, we know what we're dealing with in terms of COVID times, right? So sometimes you're going to deal with some emotional flatness on different nights. And sometimes without Gallant, we've noticed that we're looking for it, you know what I mean? And he does a good job of just sort of getting involved and getting both teams' attention and playing hard and sort of stirring the pot to get everyone going, because I think that's something we're fighting in this kind of a season. So we don't want to take it to a point where we're just being undisciplined like we did tonight. We can't do that. We got to make sure that we're smarter in that respect, but some of it's really necessary in order to just, as you say, walk on that edge a bit and make sure that we're playing with the passion that we need.
And my last one for you is obviously Rory Cairns gets into the lineup tonight, gets power play time. Maybe in advance of your next game, which I think is on Saturday, is there anybody else who you might be anticipating rotating in?
Too early for me to tell, but obviously we've got D-men that we want to get in. Kuznetsov is someone that's here now. Once he gets enough practice, we want to get him into the mix. Our other forwards joining us aren't out of quarantine yet, so we can't do anything in that respect. You've got Parsons who's coming along, but both those guys, we want to make sure that we're not rushing anyone, although we're eager to get people in.